Good morning. Welcome to our daily devotion. It is Monday, February 8th. We'll thank those of you that continue to watch these videos, those of you that share these videos. Appreciate each one of you. Many of you watch them live, and then there's a lot of you that watch them throughout the day. Good morning, Serena. Good morning, Barb. Good morning, Sherry. Before I start, is my son-in-law, Billy, birthday today, Billy Graham. His dad was named Billy. His grandpa was named William Graham. His dad was named William Graham, and he's named Billy Graham. I can remember one time when I was going to have him sing at our church, and I put it on Facebook that Billy Graham was going to be visiting us, and I had some comments. Is it really Billy Graham? They thought that the real Billy Graham was coming to our church. Good morning, Michelle. Good morning, Roz. Anyway, we're in Matthew chapter 8. Going to talk about an interesting subject today. So let's get started. When Jesus came into Peter's house, he saw Peter's mother-in-law lying in bed with fever. He touched her hand, and the fever left her, and she got up and began to wait on him. When evening came, many who were demon-possessed were brought to him, and he drove out the spirits with a word and healed all of the sick. This was to fulfill what was spoken through the prophet Isaiah. He took up our infirmities and carried our diseases. It says, many who were demon-possessed. Morning, Sharon. Morning, Marcy. Many who were demon-possessed came to him, and he healed them all. The question I have is, was that only happening at that time? Was demon possession just happening at that time? Or is there demon possession today? Because you hardly ever hear about it. I haven't heard anything about that in years, to be honest with you. So is it happening today? I'm going to read you, first of all, before we get started with this, where it all began, okay? It all began, it tells a story in Revelation of a war in heaven. And it says in 12:4 that a third of the stars, a third of the angels were flung down to earth. So how many angels there were, we don't know, but a third of them were cast out of heaven as a result of Lucifer rebelling against God. And then in verses 7 through 9, it says, war in heaven. Michael and his angels fought against the dragon. The dragon and his angels fought back, but he was not strong enough. They lost their place in heaven. The great dragon was hurled down, the ancient serpent called the devil or Satan, who leads the whole world astray. He was hurled to the earth and his angels with him. So when Jesus was walking the earth at that time, he was casting out demons, because these are the same demons that were cast out of heaven, that he was taken out of people. Same demons that are still here today. It's not like demons die. They're spirits. So they're still here today. In verse 12 it says, rejoice, you heaven, and those who dwell on them, but woe to the earth and the sea, because the devil has gone down to you. He is filled with fury because he knows that his time is short. And then in verse 17, the dragon went off to make war against God's people. So that's how it all began, okay? Now those same demons that we just read about there in Revelation at the time of Jesus are still here on earth today. What happened then can certainly happen today. Now, it's very difficult to determine between demon possession and say, a mental illness. How do we know the difference between the two of them? Now, we know that demon possession is when a demon occupies a human body. There's demon oppression, where a demon can oppress a person. And most times possession starts with oppression. It starts with being oppressed by a demon. And then eventually, when you open yourself up, it's like inviting the demon in. It's no different than when you give your life to the Lord. You invite Jesus into your life. You ask Jesus to come into your life. demon possession is literally the same thing. It's being oppressed enough to where you just allow the demon to come into your life. Now, you hear stories all the time of say, rock stars or athletes or movie stars that invite a demon in to say, if you keep me popular, if you allow me to be popular, then they invite a demon in to do that. Does that happen? You know, we read about it. Is it really happening? Let's take a look at Matthew to look at some of the demon possession at that time to kind of equate it to what could happen today, okay? In Matthew, we start at 4:4, something we've already studied in the past few weeks. It says, news of Jesus spread throughout Galilee, and he was healing every disease and sickness among the people. He was healing every kind of sickness. It says news about him spread. People brought to him all who were ill with various diseases, suffering from severe pain, from being paralyzed, from seizures, and from demon possession. So it's differentiated here. It's different. And now it's interesting because later on I'm going to read a verse to you where it talks about a demon-possessed person that caused seizures with that person. But here, they differentiate between demon possession and people having seizures. So what that's telling me is that a lot of people have seizures. It's just an illness. And some people have seizures because they're possessed by a demon. How do we know the difference? In chapter 8, verse 16, we'll be getting to this soon. It says, when evening came, many who were demon-possessed were brought to Jesus, and he drove out the spirits with a word and healed all the sick. So, again, Matthew's differentiating between all that was sick and healed and the demon-possessed that were healed. So, obviously, they could tell those that were demon-possessed. In verse 28 and 29 of the same chapter, it says, when Jesus arrived at the side of the region of Gadarus, 2 demon-possessed men came out of the tombs to meet him. They were so violent that no one could pass their way. What do you want with us, Son of God? They shouted. Have you come here to torture us before our appointed time? Interesting that the demons knew who Jesus were. But these people were so possessed that they were violent, that they were extremely violent. In 9:32 and 34, it tells us this, while they were going out, a man who was demon-possessed and could not talk was brought to Jesus. And when the demon was driven out, the man who had been mute spoke. So a demon-possessed person that caused the person to be mute, unable to speak. 22. And I'm just doing it with just a few of them here in Matthew. Then they brought him a demon-possessed man who was blind and mute, and Jesus healed him so that he could talk and see. So here's a man possessed by a demon that caused him to be blind and mute. 15:22 says this. I got to make sure I have the right. Here we go. A Canaanite woman from that vicinity came to him crying out, Lord, Son of David, have mercy on me. My daughter is suffering terribly from demon possession. How did she know that it was demon possession? Then it goes on to say that Jesus did not answer a word, so the disciples came and urged him, send her away. She keeps crying out after us. He answered, the woman came and knelt before him. Lord, help me, she said. She was not a Jew. She was not even a Jew. And Jesus healed her, but how did she know that her daughter was demon-possessed? And then 17:14 through 15 tells us, when they came to the crowd, a man approached Jesus and knelt before him. Lord, have mercy on my son, he said. He has seizures and is suffering greatly. He often falls into the fire, into the water. I brought him to your disciples, but they could not heal him. And then later on it says Jesus rebuked the spirit and the spirit came out of him. So here's a young boy with seizures that was demon possessed, and we read earlier that they differentiated between the people that were demon possessed and the people that had seizures. Confusing. Luke 8 tells a story here of multiple demons. It says, when Jesus stepped ashore, he was met by a demon-possessed man from the town. For a long time, this man had not worn clothes or lived in a house, but had lived in the tombs. When he saw Jesus, he cried out and fell at his feet, shouting at the top of his voice, "What do you want with me, Jesus, Son of the Most High God? I beg you, don't torture me." For Jesus had commanded the evil spirit to come out of the man. Many times it had seized him, and though he was chained hand and foot and kept under guard, he had broken his chains and been driven by the demon into solitary places. Jesus asked him, "What is your name?" "Legion," he replied, because many demons had gone into him. Possessed by multiple demons. When you're possessed by multiple demons, chains couldn't even hold him. Now, today we give little credit to demon possession, and I suppose it's because we don't know. We don't know. If you went to someone that was having seizures, that couldn't speak, that was blind, would you make the assumption that it was a demon, or would you make the assumption that there was some kind of an illness there? It is just so hard to know, but I do know this. The same demons are on earth today as there was when Jesus was walking the earth. Same amount here. Same amount. So in closing, I would say this. If you have a loved one, someone that you care about deeply, and you can't differentiate between whether they're demon possessed or whether it's an illness, pray, pray, pray. Because know that Jesus has the power. Jesus has the power to, we just saw that with a word, with just a word, he cast out demons. So Jesus has the power to cast out a demon. We just have to pray, asking Jesus to do that. No different than asking Jesus to heal someone that's sick. How many of you, I pray every morning for different people that are sick. I pray every morning for Amante. I pray every morning for Robert, or you know the person that led worship at our service. I'm praying every morning now for Gilbert, for Soledad's father. I pray for different people I'm praying for their healing. If they showed signs of a mental illness, I would be praying in my own mind of Jesus, if it's a demon possession, for Jesus to cast out that demon. Pray, pray, pray. Thank you for watching. I wish I had more time to cover this, and maybe one day I'll do an extensive study on this. But for the meantime, tonight is our special message. We're going to talk about how big God is. So if you could join me tonight, otherwise I'll see you tomorrow for our daily devotion. And if you're willing, share these devotions. God bless you and have a great day.